Hi, I'm Kirby Allison, and I have the distinct pleasure of being back in London after a very prolonged hiatus in the company of two of my favorite people, Edward and Eddie Sahakian, in what I think is one of the most magical places in this entire city, certainly one of my favorite, and that is here at Davidoff of London in the presence of great company and absolutely magnificent cigars. So gentlemen, thank you so much for allowing me to come back and join you guys here.
Such a pleasure, Kirby. Thank you for being here. Dad, I know we've been dying to
We couldn't wait for this steak.
It's been too long, I think, unfortunately, as kind of world events have kept great friends apart. It's so nice, I think even more sweet to be back here. And I thought that tonight, of course, during, the travel bans and everything, we had the opportunity, of course, to have a few kind of Zoom smokes, if you will. But last year, you had the distinct honor of celebrating your 40th anniversary. I mean, what a just absolutely tremendous milestone. And we were able to enjoy your 40th anniversary cigar, which you were very kind to send me, and we kind of smoked that remotely. But to properly celebrate tonight your great career and, of course, the great kind of history of this shop, Davidoff of London.
Thank you, Kirby. It's a pleasure and honor to have you here. After so many Zooms, we have you in person in front of us.
Which is the best way to enjoy a cigar in one's company.
Exactly. Not only a cigar, but perhaps also was waiting for us there to taste it. Because last time you were not able to participate in our tasting.
Yes, that's right. So of course, we spoke at great length about the 40th anniversary cigar, which is...
Yes, we did. Yes, indeed.
But please, for those that maybe haven't seen that video, speak a little bit about this, because this was a special collaboration to really commemorate what was a huge milestone for you.
Well, I'll leave that to Eddie. He can give you the full descriptions of it whilst I'm opening this.
And it's a rare box, I understand.
A lot of the work was on the shoulders of Eddie. I had just the pleasure of tasting it and enjoying it, but Eddie was very much involved in developing it, both in the cigar and, of course, of that great whiskey, which hopefully we'll be able to taste as well.
Well, you're very kind to say that, Dad, but as Kirby, you rightly mentioned, it was our 40th anniversary on the 29th of May, 2020. And that was the 40th anniversary of my father opening this shop. At the time, it seemed like a crazy idea. Everyone said he was going to go bust. It'll never work. Expensive cigar shop in London in 1980 was unheard of.
Quite bold.
I think so. As a son who lived through as a young boy and then worked and then left and then came back, I've really appreciated the work my father did. And this was an opportunity for me to really have much more input into a celebration of his achievements. It's true we're celebrating 40 years of the store, but I think amongst everyone who's visited us, what we're really celebrating is 40 years of a remarkable cigar merchant and a remarkable man.
And a friend to so many.
And a friend to so many. Really well put, Kirby. What we've tried to do, of course, in this box is capture some of the physical history of our shop. So it may not be immediately clear, but there's a subtle line drawing of the facade of the shop. If you're facing it from across St. James's Street, probably a view you're familiar with.
Yes, indeed.
And what we've tried to echo as you open is these little unusual pipes. And the reason we have that, again, I'm sure you know it, Kirby, but maybe not everyone does. The door handles of our shop, it's a glass door with two brass pipes as handles. And that's exactly what we've tried to capture. A permanent souvenir of I think, a very, very welcoming and loving space for us. The cigars themselves are, of course, Dad's and my favorite Vitola. The number 2, according to Davidoff, Corona Especial, according to the Cuban nomenclature. It's a gorgeous, elegant size, 38 ring gauge, give or take 6 inches. with a pigtail at the end. And I think, Dad, it's fair to say, and I hope I didn't steer you too far off your favorite track, but we went a bit adventurous with the blend, didn't we?
We did indeed. On your insistence, I agreed and approved the blend, which was slightly stronger than the traditional Davidoff No. 2. And I don't regret it, because it's turned out to be a delicious cigar.
Yeah, and a cigar, I think, that rightfully will age so well with a slightly stronger and fuller body tobacco.
That was very, very much in the front of our thoughts. I have to take my hat off to Davidoff as well. In Basel, we had Sam Reuter and, of course, the factory in Dominican Republic. Henke Kellner, Eladio Diaz were involved. We had a tasting panel that was put together here in London by us. Wonderful, hard work. And, of course, we ended up amongst many places back in the Davidoff facilities and headquarters in Basel, where we finalized the blend. And that was 2018.
Wow.
2 years later, 300 boxes of 10 arrived. We were ecstatic. Even straight out of the box, they were ready to smoke. Yeah. Beautiful cigars. Of course, it gave us an opportunity, having tasted them back in 2018, to think about what else we could do to celebrate the 40th anniversary. And my father's first instinct was his favorite drink, which is rum. And that's not a bad instinct, I have to say. But I think we were persuaded of maybe a whiskey pairing.
Well, I think we stumbled over this barrel of whiskey, and
literally.
Literally.
I think it's a great pairing, of course, because so often a great cigar is paired with the great spirit of one's choice.
Yes.
It does cleanse your palate very well. It makes all the difference.
And even if it doesn't, you won't remember, right? So here we are. This was a project that we did with Specialty Drinks. And they're a wonderful, wonderful custodian of whiskeys and great spirits for many decades. Diego Lanza from them introduced us to many, many barrels to taste. And my father and I thought, could we find something appropriate that dated to the same year that we opened the shop, i.e. 1980? And we were so fortunate that he did. He found a huge cask, to our eyes at least, of Glenrothes, distilled in 1980, bottled in December 2019. So technically a 39-year. It could have been a 40-year, but we didn't want to risk it changing any more than we had just tasted it. So we fixed it. The design, the beautiful presentation, again, is a testament to their company. And 179 bottles appeared.
Wow.
And in here, we've echoed some of the design cues, of course, of the shop. So the green, which is very familiar. Again, the door handles, the number, 35 St. James's. Inside here, you've got a little bit of story about how we put it together, the tasting notes, the nose, the palate, and of course the bottle itself, which I'm going to pull it out now. It's finished with gold wax.
Yes.
Dad, thank you so much. It's a hefty weight.
Almost a decanter. I mean, it looks like it could be its own decanter.
It is. It's got a real weight to it. It's all inscribed here with the story, of course, the numbering. Each bottle is individually numbered. And of course, my father's name, Eddie Sahakian. We're rightly very proud of it, but that means nothing if our friends don't enjoy it.
Well, what a privilege and honor. I mean, I would like to think, that had I been able to travel last year, I would have been here helping to celebrate such a really exceptional milestone.
As you remember from our last encounter we had on Zoom, we did drink to your toast then, but we did keep a healthy portion of it for you here.
And I think that evening, was it the first time that you guys had tasted that?
It was indeed, yes.
I can't believe I could have celebrated such an august occasion. Yeah.
It's our honor. And we did promise you, Kirby, that the next time we saw you in London, you were going to taste it with us.
Yeah, well, here I am.
Wonderful. May I?
Please.
Dad, may I trouble you to pour the first drops for Kirby.
That is a great honor for me.
You'll notice we're using tasting glasses. I hope you won't mind, not a traditional whiskey tumbler.
All. Beautiful.
There you are.
Thank you.
I should memorize this, but
Edward.
it's a 44.8
Pleasure.
strength whiskey, so it doesn't need to be diluted with water, but of course it can occasionally. This one is for you, Dad. Allow me the pleasure.
Okay.
Of course, I don't drink, so I'll be pouring myself one.
Something to refresh the palate.
Thank you, Dad.
It's already perfume.
We invite you to what we call nose the dram.
It's a beautiful nose. Nice and sweet. Incredible color. Beautiful amber. You can tell this has been properly aged.
Well, interestingly, this is from a bourbon cask. Its entire life was spent in an ex-bourbon cask, which is quite unusual for Glenrothes. They're normally done in sherry casks. So I think that brings a sweetness and an unusual twang to the palate that I hope we will all find enjoyable.
Well, gentlemen, to continued health and friendship.
Thank you, Kirby.
And to many more
so
great
much.
moments together.
And to your family,
Very
and thank
much.
you for taking this long trip across the pond to be here with us to share this precious moment together.
Well, what a privilege. Thank you. Shall we? Delicious. I mean, gentlemen, your palate for, fine whiskey is as fine as your palate for fine cigars.
It's a really meaningful sentiment from you. Thank you, Kirby. I was very nervous giving you that glass. Your opinion matters a lot to us.
Thank you.
Thank you so
flattered. Well, what shall we smoke?
A good question. Eddie, what is your suggestion?
Well,
I know you have a surprise for us.
we have a rare visit, so I'm going to pull out a rare beast. Now, this is not what you would expect. It's not one that's sat for many, many years in our vault. It's one we only received very recently from Davidoff. However, it's extraordinarily rare. You cannot get your hands on it, even though it's been launched globally. It's called the Dominicana. And this particular cigar has tobacco from 2014. It's been aged. It's 100% Dominican. And it's there to take the place of the 702 series and to some degree a nod to the Puraduro range that was produced back in 2010, 2011 period. It's quite rich, quite full-bodied. We think it has a lot of the same personality as our wonderful London cigar, with its own distinct twist on it. But I'd love to see how it pairs with this dram. We haven't tried it yet.
Oh, really? Okay. So will this be the first time you've smoked this also?
This will be the first time I'm tasting the Robusto. I have had the pleasure of trying the shorter Petit Robusto and, of course, the Toro. But the Robusto has waited for you, Kirby.
Oh, well.
And he wouldn't let us smoke it. He said, Dad, let's wait. When Kirby finally comes to London, we will
It's
taste
too much.
it with him.
Too much.
So here we are. It's the first for all three of us.
Well, shall I hand this to you?
You're very kind. Thank you very much. Here we are. They come in boxes of 10, of course. And we cannot fault Davidoff ever for presentation, of course, or production. If I could invite you to take the first one, waiting for you with the ribbons.
Oh, thank you. This is beautiful.
Dad, if I could invite you for yours.
Thank you.
I shall take mine. Now, being a cigar shop, you have choices. How would you like it cut?
Well, I defer to you. I normally, do a simple straight cut, but, you two are masters of the ritual of smoking and smoking well. So I defer to your your generous hospitality in terms of how you would suggest cutting
Be
this.
my pleasure. May I cut it? And perhaps, Dad, you could light it for Kirby.
I will do it with greatest of
And I have your favorite matches here.
Wonderful.
Kirby, may I?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I am going to use a guillotine cut. I think it's worthy of this. I should note, Kirby, you've got a little pigtail on this. This is another very distinguishing feature. We love the pigtail. It's the way the roller finishes the cap. And it's much more difficult than just putting the flat cap on it. So again, you know you're getting something made by the top of the trade roller.
Well, Davidoff does such an exceptional job at really everything.
There we are.
You know, I've always had such an admiration and appreciation for Davidoff. You know, their blending, you know, their rolling, the consistency is really second to none.
Oh, thank you so much, Kirby. You know, we have the pleasure and privilege of selling and enjoying cigars from all over the world here. And hand on heart, we have enjoyed Davidoff's throughout the 41 years we've been operating here.
Of course.
Originally Cuban, then they did that amazing pivot to the Dominican in '93.
Incredible.
And
oh, wow, that burned quickly.
they never compromised quality, and they never compromised the customer first. We're so proud to be part of that.
Well, it's such an approachable cigar. So tell me a little bit more. So you're saying that this was, you know, 2014 tobacco.
Yes. It was a particularly delicious crop. It's been aged wonderfully in Dominican Republic. And they've delivered a cigar that is extremely, what's the best way to put it? Extremely involved. It's got complexity, but with complexity strength. It's not the lightest Davidoff, but it's also not the punch you in the face type strength.
Ah, thank you. May I?
Please, please.
Virgin puff.
Dad, would you like a lighter or matches?
Matches, if I may, please, Eddie. But before the matches, can I?
Oh yes, a cutter
trouble
would
you
help.
with a cutter will help.
There
Thank
we
you.
are, Dad. Allow me to bring this to you.
So you said that this was a particularly difficult cigar to come across.
Yes.
When were the boxes released?
So they were released officially before the summer
Okay.
of this year. But we were promised actually quite a significant portion. There was no suggestion that we couldn't get what we wanted. And the time came. Boxes didn't arrive. We asked where they were. It'll come, it'll come, it'll come. And very apologetically, they told us that actually we're not going to be able to get you almost any boxes.
Really?
And we don't know when. And we were thinking it's weeks, but we've now been told it'll be into next year before we will see any significant quantity of these cigars.
Really? What do you think was behind that?
I think it's a combination of global shortages and unprecedented demand for this cigar. You know, I don't think Davidoff imagined it would be the success it is. I have a waiting list longer than my arm for these cigars in every size.
Really? And it's a global release?
It's a global release. It's a little bit frightening, actually, because I don't like to disappoint customers. And as a cigar smoker myself, there's a limit to how much anticipation you will tolerate before it becomes, let's say, something different, maybe anger.
Intolerant. Yeah.
So we hope we won't disappoint our customers too much longer.
You know, I'm really fascinated by, you know, most of the Davidoff cigars are blends, right? And you can find tobacco from multiple countries. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, absolutely right.
But to have something that's of a single origin, if you will, is, you know, unique. And the provenance of a cigar like this, knowing that tobacco came from the same country, you know, I think really elevates it even further.
It's the equivalent of the single malt, single
Yes.
cask.
Here we are.
Kirby, may I ask, in the many, many cigars you've smoked that are non-Cuban, is there, apart from Davidoff, is there any particular cigars that stand out for you?
You know, it's an interesting question. You know, the majority of my humidor is, of course, either Cuban cigars, because I really appreciate kind of the tradition and history behind Cuban cigars, or Davidoffs, because, you know, with Davidoff, of course, there's never any question of quality. You always are certain that it's masterfully blended, you know, exceptionally rolled, and perfectly presented. So I don't smoke much outside of that. I would say that one of my kind of favorite non-Cuban smokes, and it was actually the first cigar that really introduced me to the Lancero format, was a Flor de los Antillas Lancero, and I think it was the Cigar Aficionado Cigar of the Year in like 2015 or 2016, quite a while ago. And it was kind of, because of that accolade, I went out and found a few boxes, and exceptionally smooth, well-balanced, and it was the first time I feel, experienced the true magic of that slim ring gauge, very long cigar format that is the Lancero and has fast become one of my favorite vitolas.
Lancero's dimensions,
you know,
7 inches.
Don't quote me specifically, but it's, yes,
speaking,
roughly.
Yes.
I mean, it was a 38 ring gauge, so quite slim, which, you know, I appreciate just the elegance of a nice slim cigar in the hand. But you still have the length to ensure that, you know, enjoyment time is by no means compromised.
Well, Kirby, I think it's high time the industry named a cigar called the Allison.
We need one. It's a proper sovereign grade cigar.
A sovereign grade cigar.
Yeah. Well, one of these days, you know, if one were to ever grant wishes, I think would be to have the opportunity to maybe travel to the Dominican Republic, you know, in your company, to actually see the farms and maybe even kind of go through the process of experiencing how, you know, great cigars such as these are blended, and maybe even having a few boxes made, you know, for my personal collection, the collections of some dear friends.
It will be a wonderful experience for you. You will thoroughly enjoy it. I mean, apart from the plantations, the factory itself, it's amazing. There you witness the amount of care and attention goes into the quality control of the cigars.
It's really incredible.
Every time a cigar is handled by a pair of hands, there is a box, a carton box next to the person. And as he's putting the labels on, if he notices the slightest defect on the cigar, it goes into that box. The next person, he's putting them together, bunching them. If he notices anything, it goes into his box, and so on and so on. And at the end of the day, they get rewarded by the number of cigars that are in those boxes.
Oh, really?
So everybody's very keen
Incentivized
on finding a fault in a cigar.
My question is, what happens to those cigars?
They probably...
They're destroyed immediately.
Yeah, one by one.
That's right. That's right. A little take-home gift, you
Yeah.
know, to supplement one's wages.
You know, I would say, Kirby, for someone with your exacting standards, with your eye for detail and luxury, and really spotting the silk among the cloth, you would be impressed. I mean, you would see in an agricultural setting excellence.
Yeah.
You would see from the farmer to the very last point of contact before it reaches us, people whose sole goal is to deliver excellence.
Yeah.
You know, it's wonderful to see that.
I call it Little Switzerland. When I go through the gates of the factory,
Yeah.
we enter the Little Switzerland in Dominican Republic.
You can see the influence of
You
the
can
Swiss.
feel the difference. You will see the difference. It's probably as neat and accurate as walking into one of the workshops of watchmakers in Switzerland. It's,
Interesting
everything
analogy.
is to its perfection.
Well, and of course, I mean, you've traveled extensively to Cuba. You've seen the Cuban factories, and then to juxtapose that against, you know, the way that the Dominicans run the Davidoff factories must be a really interesting comparison.
They're two different worlds. You know, one is the old world, and the
the new
one
world.
is the new world.
Yeah.
But still keeping the old techniques, most of it, but refining on them,
of course, and they're still completely made by hand.
Oh,
so not
absolutely.
compromising any of that tradition.
Absolutely, everything made by hand to perfection. And, you know, we sell many cigars from all over the world. We never, ever, and I can say this truly, in the last 10 years, I don't remember one person coming saying, I bought this Davidoff cigar and it's not throwing.
Yeah, which is quite a risk with Cuban cigars. It's kind of par course. You kind of have to accept
well,
that.
The Cuban cigars,
you
you take it for
cost,
granted.
yes.
You know, that's how it is. It's fine, but it's not perfect to the perfection of the Davidoff ones.
It's really amazing to think how Davidoff has been able to, at their scale, you know, to really exert such quality control and perfection over their cigars. So I think this absolutely has to be a project that we write down. We've memorialized it here on film, so now we have to do it. And to be able to do it in your company, I think there could be no better way.
We'll be honored to be there.
You know, one of the things I love so much about cigars, and we were discussing this a little bit last night over dinner at Wilton's with the Fowkes, is that, you know, I can't think of a single other item that better epitomizes quality craftsmanship and tradition than a hand-rolled cigar. You have the quality of the tobacco and the leaves and everything that goes into that. You have the craftsmanship of these rollers that, you know, their entire career, it's probably their only job, has been spent, you know, really seeking out that perfection in crafting a fine cigar. And then you have, of course, the rich tradition, not just of how they're made and of Cuba and of growing tobacco, but also just the tradition of enjoying it in such great company with other gentlemen.
Beautifully put, Kirby. You know, I always think of a extraordinary symphony. You know, when you see these orchestras that you know, Berlin Orchestra, for example, they execute to perfection.
Or the Royal Philharmonic here in London.
The Royal Philharmonic. These are companies, these are people whose talent with their hands has elevated them to an extraordinary degree, and they commit their whole life to putting that to greater use to make something even greater than the sum of the parts.
And you put them all together, and as you said, the sum of the parts far exceeds, you know, each individual one added together.
Yes. Yeah. And we call it a cigar factory.
Yes, that's right.
Really, it's an orchestra.
It really is. And the other thing that, again, you know, I just was struck by just not too long ago, is just the realization that there is nothing handmade to this level, to this quantity, that is this accessible. I mean, of course, in London, I mean, this is, you know, the capital, the world capital of fine menswear, of bespoke clothing, of bespoke shoes. But, you know, let's be honest. I mean, that craft is relatively inaccessible to the average person. But anyone can walk in here, you know, of any means, and leave, you know, for as little as $15 or $20 with a handmade cigar that, again, really exemplifies those values of quality craftsmanship and tradition, and enjoy it. And of course here, you know, kind of under your guidance, you know, the knowledge of cigars, the guidance of selection. I mean, not only you, but your entire staff are all experts in that humidor and are able to, you know, really expertly guide people in the selection of perhaps their very first cigar or, you know, their 100th.
Well, Kirby, I can't tell you, my father used to say these things to me, but I've seen it myself now. The pleasure when you see a customer that came in as a young man, who then comes in with his son.
Yes.
And now my father is seeing them coming in with their grandson.
Amazing.
You know, this is intergenerational, and it's
That's what happens in 40 years.
That's right. Well, I think it's by virtue of, I think, a true testament to the fact that you've been here for so long.
It's a great honor. I mean, it's such a pleasure to see fathers and sons, and in some cases, father, son, and grandson walking into the shop together.
If I'm so lucky one day to being able to bring my son Nathaniel,
God willing, I will be here to welcome all of you.
Well, I think so.
The honor will be ours for sure.
So talk to me a little bit about that. I mean, of course, I think you guys are one of the great father-son duos that I've seen. I mean, truly exemplifying that relationship of, you know, really guiding one's son, through the finer things of life, as we kind of mature and age and really become men. And so can you talk a little bit about, just what it was like, really kind of initiating young Eddie into this fine world, of course, that's been so important to you?
Well, initiating young Eddie into the world of cigars was by default. I've told this story many times, I think. Eddie's mom one day came very distressed. She had found a Zippo lighter in one of his pockets. And said, he must be smoking. You have to do something about it. I said, well, calm down. Don't worry. I'll talk to him. And when Eddie came back from school, I said, Eddie, Saturday morning, I want you to come to the shop. I need to talk to you.
Uh-oh.
And I want you to be
and
there.
This was on Wednesday, and he sweat all week.
Or perhaps a Monday. On Saturday morning, 10 o'clock, Eddie came to the shop. Yes, Dad, what did you want to talk to me about? I said, sit down in this chair where he's sitting now.
These probably exact chairs.
And it was exactly the same chairs.
My fingernails are still embedded.
Yes, I can see them.
And he said, well, Eddie, just wait. And I walked into the cigar room. I picked up my favorite cigar, Davidoff number 2. Came over, I cut it, I lit it. And I said, I want you to smoke this cigar. Oh, Dad, I don't smoke. I can't smoke. I said, no, you do smoke and you have to smoke. And you know what? If you're ever going to smoke anything in your life, you might as well start with the best. And a fine cigar is the best thing that you could start smoking. I don't want you ever smoking cigarettes. I don't want you to smoke anything else, only Davidoff cigars. And I lit one myself and we sat down. It was meant to be punishment, but it turned out to be joy and pleasure. And it's continued ever since, up to this moment that we're sitting here talking in the same chair, enjoying a cigar together.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can only imagine the number of countless cigars that you guys have been able to enjoy together over your time. So what wealth? I mean, that is true wealth.
I've been blessed, and a testament to any father. I think this is a lesson for me as a father now. If you want to teach your children, not just sons, these days I hope daughters as well, the qualities of life, the right way to approach everything, perhaps. Lead by example.
Mm-hmm.
My father is one of those people who is the first to do something. He doesn't expect others to do it. He does it himself. And his inspiration is second to none. He does not lead from the back, he leads from the front. And I think that's a really important lesson for any father's son, for anyone in life in general.
It's a philosophy, I think, of just living well, but also, really valuing, just the tradition and then being able to pass that down from father to son, I think is a real privilege, but it's also a responsibility.
All I could say is I learned it from my father. Mm. And he used to do everything. He was the first to do it. Well, he used to smoke cigarettes. Yeah. In those days, back in Iran, cigars didn't exist. But he was a cigarette smoker. But anything that needed to be done, he was first to do it. And I was the one to follow him.
Yeah, beautiful. I can only imagine the man that he was. By seeing.
Every father is very important to every person, I think.
We hope, yes. So speak to me a little bit. You've been here for 40 years. You talk of, all these, families that you've seen, come in, a customer is a young man, then is a father of young children, and then at some point, the father of an adult child, and being able to then perhaps initiate them or invite them in to certain, enjoyments that one surrounds their life with. So, have you seen, more people kind of coming in recently, or has this always been something that you've seen?
Much more recently, but definitely it's always been going on a smaller scale. friends, clients coming in with their son, asking me, Edward, can you enlighten my son? Can you teach him how to smoke? Can you help him to choose a cigar? Can you show him how to smoke a cigar? It happens all the time, but it's happening much more recently. In the early days, it was less, by far less, but it still did happen.
How do you approach that? I mean, someone walks in with their son.
Depends
where
who
do you
he is.
start?
It depends who he is. The one that always stands out in my mind, I never forget that, it was some years ago, the late King of Jordan, King Hussein of Jordan, he used to come here regularly, but one day he pulled up in his car, 2 escorting cars. He walked in with a young man with him, and he would always come in without any of the bodyguards. Bodyguards were always instructed to stay outside. He would walk in here, shake hands with every member of the staff here. And he came with this young man. He said, Edward. I said, yes, Your Majesty, welcome. He said, Edward, I have a favor to ask you. I said, yes. What can I do for you? I said, I want you to teach my son how to smoke a cigar. And I looked at this young man, and I didn't know what to say. The first thing that came to my mind was, Your Majesty, how much time do I have? 15 minutes. 15 minutes. I will do my best. And I took the young man. This was his younger son. And I took him into the cigar room. And within 15 minutes, I gave him a crash course, which I hope he still remembers, and he's exercising what I've told him. But that really was, for me, it showed how important the cigar is for a king to walk into a shop and ask you to teach his son how to enjoy it.
Yeah. And what a testament to the relationship that you have with so many people, that he would entrust you with that, to be able to, share that with him.
Well, more recently, it was about a year and a half ago, a dear friend of ours, Rohit.
No, it's more now.
Is it more? Is it 2 years?
3, 4, maybe 5 years ago already.
As long as that. I could swear it was last year. He came and said, Edward, I want my son to smoke a cigar, but I want you to teach him how to smoke a cigar.
Yeah.
And same story, I took him there, showed him around, talked to him, lit up his first Davidoff number 2
of course.
in this chair. A matter of fact, you might remember, last night as we were walking out, there was a gentleman with his wife sitting there with his son. Mm-hmm. The son was the one that I taught how to smoke, and he's never forgotten that.
Oh, how beautiful.
He calls me Dad number 2.
How beautiful.
And he, of all people, he's a wonderful young man, Tej, and I know him as a very dear friend. He had it very firmly in his mind. He was an athlete throughout his young years, so he never smoked, but he committed. He said, I can see the pleasure it gives my father. I can see what an important part of my father's life cigars has been, and I can see the wonderful friends he's accumulated in the world of cigars. I want to be part of that, and I'll be ready for that when I turn 30. So he made a date. It was in December. He said he's coming into our shop on his 30th birthday.
Wow.
With his father to do that experience. It's exactly how it happened.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. And is this Davidoff number 2 where you often...
It's always a number 2 for beginners, because you can't go wrong with the Davidoff
Yes, that's
number
right.
2. It's mild, smooth, very nice flavor cigar, and you will enjoy it. You will not regret smoking it. And it's the beginning of a long, pleasant journey in life, enjoying the good things in life.
Yeah, it's such a testament to that particular cigar. Its accessibility. If I ever have a friend that, perhaps isn't a smoker, maybe smoking a cigar for his first time, or maybe they just don't smoke frequently, I have a box of Davidoff number 2s, the signatures, waiting for them in my humidor.
We're building up a beautiful cloud of smoke here. Isn't that lovely?
I think smoking indoors is one of life's greatest enjoyments. And one of the things I love about smoking indoors, of course, you're all but guaranteed a perfectly even burn because you don't have competing drafts. But you're also able to see the smoke linger. And I think there's really something so beautiful and so elegant about that. And you can also blow perfect smoke rings.
I'm not very good at that. Eddie's by far better.
Hardly. We have a friend though who's the world
Yes.
champion.
He's a world champion, Shari. He's the world champion of blowing smoke rings. He could sit here, blow a smoke ring that will go in the full circle and land on top of, onto the bottle.
That's incredible. It's a real skill. But
don't know
the
how
secret
he
to the
does
smoke
it.
room is the smoke ring is you must be in a perfectly still room in order to allow that
Kirby,
to happen.
can you blow smoke rings?
Let's see. This is a lot of pressure for me on camera. Yeah, I think the first smoke ring I ever blew was probably here in the shop. You know, oftentimes in Texas, you know, we're displaced to the outdoors, in which case
It's impossible.
You know, it's impossible.
Oh, there we
got a few there.
Yeah.
I think I got one a bit earlier. You know, you know, it's always there's a degree of satisfaction
When you want it, it doesn't
whenever
come.
you hit it. You know, it's like one of those things. If someone asks you to do it, you never can. But in that moment of spontaneity, it just kind of happens. So, I mean, Edward, 40 years here in the shop, and I think one of the things that I certainly appreciate is that this is so much more than a job, right? I mean, this is truly a life's passion for you. And you've developed so many friendships along the way. As I say often, that this is the most exclusive smoking lounge in all of London. You know, there's only 2 chairs. You were kind enough to bring in a 3rd one for us tonight. And there's always great company here also. What are some other stories that you kind of reflect upon, you know, just over the course of those 40 years that you look back with fondness?
Oh, God. You know, I got into this business. There was no business plan. There was nothing. It was a chapter of life where I had to start all over again. And the question from, at that time, my solicitor and now my friend, he asked me, said, what would you like to do if you were not able to go back and continue your businesses back in Iran? We had a thought. This was over lunch after a bottle of wine.
Dad, how old were you again? Remind me at that point.
33.
Really?
33,
Wow.
34.
Quite young.
We-
I never fully appreciated how young you were back then. I mean,
No, yes.
I'm 37. I can only imagine, you know, at 33, you know, having to completely start over. And especially in a city like London that's so established. I mean, where do you even begin?
You know, if I could interrupt your story for a moment, I wish everyone had the wisdom to stop themselves around the age of 30, 33, and have the luxury, or not luxury, the opportunity to reflect and say, what would I do now with everything I've learned in my life so far, everything I've done so far? If I could pick anything to do going forward, what would it be? I wonder how many of us would completely change what we do.
The wisdom at 30, of course, is profoundly different than that.
Because the way he put the question to me, he said, well, what would you like to do? What are your hobbies? I said, well, my hobbies, I like traveling, I like photography. He said, oh, what about a camera shop? I said, no, it's too complicated for me. I said, well, you know what I do enjoy?
Look at that. He's showing off for us now. Look at this.
Said, I do enjoy smoking a cigar. If I had to start all over again, and no objections to that, I would love to have a cigar shop like the Davidoff shop in Geneva, where I used to buy
To
my
which you had
cigars
traveled
from
to
there.
previously,
Oh yes,
yeah.
I used to buy my cigars there regularly. And I said, well, I started describing it to him. So you walk into the shop, there's a section there, they have cigars on the shelves, accessories. And I would love to have something like that. And it all started from there. So I'll write a letter and see if they're interested. I said, no, we're talking about dreams. He said, no, I'll just write a letter. I'm not going to charge you or anything. Don't worry. And it just started there. Don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. The next thing I know, I'm opening a shop.
40 years later. And it was here on these exact premises.
Right here, right on this, as we're sitting here. This used to be the Algerian tourist office, and it was
really?
shut down for a number of years.
Really?
All these beautiful windows were
Right
painted
here on the corner
black.
of St. James's and German Street. It's hard to imagine that,
And
you know, any real estate would be empty
Yeah.
here.
it's just,
What a perfect place for a cigar shop right here on St. James's, you know, in the middle of all these gentlemen's clubs, you know, which at that time, you know, you could still smoke indoors. Smoking
absolutely.
cigars was a very part
Yes.
of kind of the culture of the club.
Well, it's very appropriate. I mean, as you know, German Street, it caters for all the needs of a gentleman. There's suits, shoes, shirts, cufflinks, your haircut, everything.
Or not, in my case.
Or not in your case.
At least you got rid of the COVID beard, weren't you?
Yes.
Yeah. And, you know, it was beautiful. I don't regret ever doing this. Talking to my old friends, I always tell them, I said, well, you know, I've lost many things leaving behind and moving here, but what I've gained is by far more precious to me than whatever I lost.
Yeah.
It was all material loss. What I've gained here is the friendship of so many people, so many dear friends. I have friends all over the world, people, if I go knock on the door, if I tell them I'm coming to Australia, he will be in the airport waiting there to pick me up. If I call a friend of mine in Jack in Chicago, I said, well, we're going to pass through Chicago. He said, no, you're not passing through Chicago. You're going to stop in Chicago. What time are you arriving? I said, oh, we're arriving there after tomorrow, such a flight. We arrived there. He's standing there in his shorts waiting for me with his limousine. He picked us up. You know, he took us to his home. We had lunch. It's such a delight to have such a wide range and scope of friends. And, you know, friendship, at the end of the day, life is all based on friendship.
Yeah, indeed.
It's such a valuable, there are a few things in life which they say it's very valuable, and the older it gets, the better it becomes.
Yes.
Wines, Persian carpets, good cigar, but more so friendship.
Yeah, and great friendships do only get better with age.
Yes, especially if you become friends with a cigar smoker, because you share so many similarities with each other.
Yeah. Well, one of my closest friends is, in fact, a cigar smoker, and I often wonder, are we close friends, you know, because we get along, or are we close friends because we've had the opportunity to smoke cigars and enjoy so much of one's time over a
Now, what
smoke.
you said, I say the same thing in a different context. We were talking with Simon Chase, our dear old friend Simon Chase, and I said, Simon, have you noticed that every cigar smoker is a successful person in his own range of business, whatever he does? If you're a cabbie driver and you're a cigar smoker, you stand out. You know, your cabbie is always the shiniest, always the best one. If you're a cigar smoker in the world of finance, you know, they're all successful people. In politics, they're all successful people. So I wonder, is it the cigar that makes a person successful, or is it the success that makes the person smoke a cigar?
You know, it's an interesting question. We'll have to ponder that one until the next time we meet. Gentlemen, I mean, thank you so much. What a pinnacle evening.
Thank you
to
so
enjoy
much
your
again.
exclusive company, you know, celebrating, albeit a year late, you know, 40 years of just
My
incredible
father used to
friendship
say,
so many-
whenever you catch the fish, it will be fresh. So
Yeah,
we
that's
caught
right.
it this
There we
time.
go. And I have to say, this is a truly splendid bottle that paired perfectly with this cigar. So, Eddie, these choices to kind of bring these together are brilliant. And of course, I would expect nothing less from you.
To your good health, and in Armenian we say genat.
Genats.
Cheers.
Gentlemen.